Hey, what's up everybody? This is Tim from Arm Wrestling Secrets, and I wanted to talk about something really important today, and that is how to deal with injuries in arm wrestling. Okay, and that's something everybody deals with. Everybody who's arm wrestled or is arm wrestling has certainly dealt with injuries or has been injured, or you are not an arm wrestler. Okay, you all know about sore arms. Okay, now I want to talk about some of the normal chronic injuries that I have faced, and more than likely you face. I've certainly talked to hundreds of arm wrestlers over my career, and a lot of them have similar problems. So let me kind of go through those really quickly. Now, if you're an arm wrestler, are your elbows sore? Right? Are your elbows? Elbows take a majority of the torque when you're arm wrestling. So the first thing that usually gets really sore, except for the muscles get sore anyway, right? The biceps and the forearms and stuff. That's normal muscle soreness, but I mean joint tendon soreness. So I wanted to cover that really quickly, okay? And then we'll talk about how to kind of deal with these things in broad strokes. We'll get into specific injury rehabilitation later. I really want to bring some of the rehab skills that I have to the channel, and especially for specific arm wrestling injuries. And we'll get into that stuff later, but I wanted to make a good general video on arm wrestling injuries and kind of how to deal with them right now, regardless of what the injury is, okay, without getting really specific on the injury. Regardless of the injury is, but let's look at a couple of specifics that people usually deal with, a couple of the basics, and then I'll talk about how to deal with injuries basically for arm wrestling, and we'll talk about some of the philosophies there, okay? Because it's such a big part of the sport. Unfortunately, injury and being sore is a major part of arm wrestling, and it separates the sport from a lot of other sports. When you do other sports, you don't run into the same amount of injuries. In arm wrestling, it's kind of 100%. It's hardcore. It's not for everybody, but that's what we love about it. And it's injurious, meaning it can make you injured, it can make you sore. Okay, so some of the common injuries that I've certainly run into, and I know you guys have too, let's talk about those, is inflammation of the elbows, okay, tendinitis. Now let's talk about the specific wording for those, okay? So the inside of the elbow would be that's your medial, I should have had my short sleeve shirt, but your medial epicondyle, okay? That's this little bony part where you're probably getting a lot of soreness on the inside here. Okay, all of the muscles of the flexor, the wrist flexor, the muscles that are responsible for the hook, the torque that you put into this here, this movement here, all these muscles connect to this medial epicondyle. So that's when that's really sore, you have medial epicondylitis, okay? That's just another word for medial epicondylitis is another word for just tendinitis on the inside of the elbow, okay? Inside of the elbow, tendinitis on the inside of the elbow, medial epicondylitis, same thing. That's your medial epicondyle. That's where a lot of the majority of the strain might be, okay, depending on your technique, or it's your lateral epicondyle, okay? Same thing, other side. All the muscles of the wrist extensor, okay? Not the wrist flexor, all the wrist flexor muscles attached to the medial epicondyle. The wrist extensor, all the muscles attached to the lateral epicondyle, okay? And so all the tendinous structures from all those muscles are attaching here. That's where majority of the torque is, like I said, depending on your technique and the different things. And you're getting wrenching on both sides of your elbow. Your elbow is trying to stabilize because it's held on a pad, right? Your elbow's on a pad during arm wrestling. It's not loose. It would want to be, okay, because that takes a lot of the shock out of it. But in arm wrestling, your arm is stuck on a pad. And so all of the torque, the muscles on each side of your elbow where they come to those epicondyles, your elbow has to stabilize itself, and it does so by a lot of force being generated on both sides of the elbow kind of at the same time, okay? So the elbow is trying to be stabilized. There's a lot of torque when you're flexing and moving these muscles as well, okay? So there's a lot of injury can happen to this part of the elbow, whether it's inside or outside or both. You might have a lot of inflammation there, okay? So that's really, really common, and that's a chronic injury. Now, that's not really a major injury though. It might seem like one though. It might seem like, man, I've had this for years. It never goes away. Okay, before we move on, the reason it's not going away is overuse. And that's one of the biggest things. We've already talked about overtraining, and that's why I didn't want to wait too long before I went into this video, because I wanted to cover it while we're still going over this material and it's still fresh. Overtraining, it's the same type of idea. If you have a chronic injury, chronic tendinitis, it's just overtraining. It's a sign of overtraining. I will say this, especially as a rehab expert, the tendinitis around the elbows are very sensitive, okay? Tendinitis around the elbows can take a long time to go away if you don't leave them alone. Okay, and here's the problem with arm wrestlers. They love to arm wrestle. They don't want to stop. They keep wanting to test it. Okay, maybe today it's going to feel better. Maybe today. And they go and have a pulling session. And once they're warmed up, it's not too bad. And then a couple days later, it's killing them again. And I know the feeling. And the frustration starts again, and it starts to get depressing. And you think maybe your careers might be over. And you just need to change your habits. And I'm going to tell you this, okay? This is going to help you. This is going to help you. If you have a chronic problem, like let's say, I'm going to just say just one of those tendon problems in your elbow right now. Let's just say it could be your wrist, it could be your fingers, it could be anything associated with overuse arm wrestling. If you have one of those injuries, stop arm wrestling now. Okay? That's what's keeping you injured. You're going to stay injured if you keep doing that. If you keep doing whatever, it's just like if you hit your finger with a hammer and it got all puffy and black and blue, right? What's going to happen if you hit it again? And again and again and again? Do you expect it to get better? No. Okay, the same thing's going for your elbow. If your elbow or your shoulder or whatever is killing you because of arm wrestling, or your fingers, if they're killing you because of arm wrestling, you're arm wrestling too much, okay? You have to stop. You have to listen to your body. You have to stop, let the injuries heal. And here's my advice, okay? Because I don't want this video to go on too long. My advice for dealing with injuries, arm wrestling injuries, obviously, is, as I said, stop arm wrestling. You have to realize what's causing the injury. Okay, there could be a secondary thing, okay, possibly, okay? Your technique, you could be using a technique that's really bad or something like that. I'd make sure to watch if you're a beginner and you're really getting some injuries, if you haven't watched my Arm Wrestling Secrets video series, make sure to watch that. It's gonna show you a lot of the basic fundamentals that'll help protect your body and your muscles. So if it's a technical issue, that could be the problem. But for all of you seasoned arm wrestlers out there, you're just overusing your arms, and your arms are, it's not exactly, like I said, it's not a very natural sport. It's not natural to have your arm pinned down to a table and have somebody else who's really strong pulling on it and trying to wrench it over to the side and slam it down on a pin pad. And it's not natural for you to take someone else who's really strong and grab their arm and try to wrench it across the table and slam it down to the side on a pin pad. Some of you are probably laughing right now, but right? That's not normal. It's not natural. Therefore, it is hard on your arms, and you just have to accept that. If you're going to try to arm wrestle through the pain, you'll always be in pain. I can't help you. Okay? I already told you what the issue was. The issue is overtraining. If you're going to continue overtraining and you continue using the arm the same way, it's going to continue to get sore. Just like the thumb, if you hit it over and over, don't expect it to get better. But here's my advice. Okay? Stop doing the injurious movement. In this case, it's arm wrestling, okay? In the case of the hammer, it would be stop hitting your thumb with the hammer. In this case, it's stop pounding your body on the arm wrestling table. Just stop. Stop arm wrestling until your injuries can heal, and then start to continue with your weightlifting if the weightlifting's not making those same muscles sore. If you're not getting that sharp streaking pain through the injury, okay, and you're able to work with lighter weights and then maybe work up stronger, building some blood flow back into the area, okay, that is the way to heal the injury. Now, if you can't, and like I said, we'll go into a whole rehab section later, and that's important to me, very specifically. But this is what I wanted to say before I cap the video, is if let's just say you have like one of the injuries on the arm, something like this, okay? If they're really sore and the weightlifting you're doing, not forget about the arm wrestling. I already told you to stop doing that. And if you're going to do it, go 5% or 10%, something that you don't feel any pain. If you're going to train with an injury, I want you to train so you don't feel any pain at all. If you feel any pain, you're going too hard. If you have to completely stop, that is what I'm telling you to do to cure the injury. And that's the whole point of the video, okay? So in terms of weightlifting, I don't suggest inactivity. I don't suggest just letting the muscles heal. They're going to atrophy, okay? And that's not a good thing either, okay? Unless you have a major injury, like a bicep tear where you need surgery. If you have like a tendinitis or something, you'll notice it start to go away fairly quickly. And I'm gonna put out a different video for dealing with tendinitis of the elbow, because I think that's very common. But What I wanted to say was make sure that if you're dealing with an injury, you don't want to just completely leave the thing completely alone. You want to try to work the muscles a little bit. A lot of times when people get an injury, they just completely leave it alone. So like I said, if it's not a major injury, like if it's like a tendonitis you're dealing with or something like that, let's say you go into the weight room. I still say try to maintain the strength training if you can, if it's not creating the same type of pain that you've been dealing with. So let's just say, take a small example, okay? Let's say you're doing cable curls, you're working on your hook, you're doing cable curls with 75 pounds, okay? Let's say that's your normal weight, okay? That's your hard weight, okay? If it doesn't give you the same pain that you're getting on the table and it feels okay, that should be okay. It should be okay if you're not feeling any pain doing it. If that's giving you that same pain, that's the same type of overuse, okay? It's the same kind of thing. So you have to work it maybe 35 pounds instead of 75 pounds. Maybe try cutting the weight in half and seeing if you can do that without the same amount of pain, okay? And if that is no pain, or if that feels okay, then you can just add a lot of repetitions to it, okay? So like I said, I'll get into specifics later, but doing some higher volume, meaning higher repetition training with the same weights on the same muscle groups is actually going to bring a lot of blood flow into the area and actually help heal an injury as well. So that's my final thoughts on it. I'm going to touch on this stuff a lot later, and we'll go into specific rehab later on. Have a great day.